The approval of the minutes of January 7, 2019.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of January 7th, 2019. As printed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's good. Okay, sitting as the Board of Appeals, we will switch over to the Board of Appeals now. This is 2018-36, Gliding Shops LLC, State Street and Thames Street property. In the 423 Hope Street Development LLC and SAT Development Partners LLC. Come up.
So, I don't know that you need to come up yet. So my understanding from Mr. Tanner and Mr. Hatton is that the Historic District Commission's response to our remanding has been received by the board. And we have also received, as of Friday, at least Mr. Tanner has received, a memorandum from the objectors, Mr. McGillivray prepared. We have not seen that memorandum, and Mr. Resnick has not had a chance to respond to that if he chooses, or Mr. Tights, if they choose to file a written response. So I think the first question is, are we going to accept that memo, or are we obligated to accept that memo?
I don't think you're obligated to accept the memo, but if you do wish to review it, it would be certainly appropriate upon acceptance of that to permit the other sides to have their response or reply. I note that the decision from the HDC was finalized and distributed on January 25. So it was 2 weeks and a day later, as I counted it, that last Friday, midday Friday, that that memorandum was received by the objectors. Usually if the objectors file something, the other side should definitely be entitled to respond. And if they should have a similar period of time, I would think, to draft and file that response, at which time the board should have the ability to have a week or two to read it, review it with the original memorandum, and then return here to come to a decision as to how you want to proceed at that point.
So is there any time limit within which we have to act on the response to our remand?
No, we don't have a problem with that right now.
That seems like that would be sensible to give Mr. Resnick and Mr. Tights if he wishes to do something like that.
I have no objection to that. Members of the board. Steve McGillivray for the objectors. I have no objection to supplemental memo.
Thank you, Michael Resnick, on behalf of the applicants. I would request that the board not consider Mr. McGillivry's submission and to not accept legal memorandums. It was my understanding that the record was closed. In fact, there was a submission to the HDC, which was improperly made by Attorney McGillivray. After that was done, we were given the opportunity to respond, which we did. I believe these matters have been briefed. I think the minutes of the HDC hearing speak for themselves. I would request that the board consider this matter and the decision provided by the HDC this evening without additional memorandums or legal argument. And I would be willing to go forward tonight, and that would be my preference.
So the record is certainly closed. I think we voted to close the record some time ago when we remanded it back to the HDC.
The record being the factual record that was created at the HDC. That's really the record. And that record hasn't been added to or supplemented either when it came here on appeal nor when it returned on remand to the HDC per the decision of this board. So the record is the record. Right now, what we've received, and I've reviewed it, as far as I can see, doesn't seek to expand the record. Mr. Resnick wants to speak to that. He'd be certainly free to do so. It doesn't seem to me that he's tried to expand the record, but provided additional legal argument for what, in essence, is a supplemental decision of the Historic District Commission that this board has not yet really reviewed in its entirety, and so it would be appropriate for the board to permit, legal memoranda on that basis. Again, it is the discretion of the board to permit and accept legal memoranda, and you don't have to, but this is a situation where you have a decision that's come up on remand, so that's up to you.
Just speak very briefly on that.
Sure. Why don't you come up to the microphone, Mr. Gilbert?
So I apologize to the board members for getting a memo out. It was 2.5 weeks, was about as quickly as I could do it under the circumstances. It's a 20-some-odd page memo, and it goes over the record and goes over the procedural history and makes some arguments which I think will be helpful to the board members in kind of understanding the objectors' positions anyway. I have no objection to a reply. That the intent was not to foreclose everybody from having a fair chance to address the board in writing. So I'm open to a reply deadline, however the board wants to handle it. That's fine with me. I did put a lot of effort into the memo. It does outline in kind of bullet point form the evidence that was considered and the arguments that were made before the Historic District Commission. I would truly appreciate, and I know my clients would appreciate, if the board had an opportunity to review that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tights, did you want to address the board?
Thank you. Andrew Tights, TEITZ, representing the Historic District Commission on appeal. I would encourage you just to deal with it tonight, or if you need more time, but not to take more documentation. I've read what Mr. McGilvery submitted as well, and I don't think it's new, but in fact, I don't think it's new. I don't think there's anything there that he couldn't have put in the last 3 memos, which he did. He's now got it in a nice table form, but that could have been done before. I don't think he's just repeating the same arguments that he made before as to the weight of the evidence. And I think it's up to the board. I think you've got enough stuff in front of you, and you've heard it enough times to make a decision without going further. So that would be my preference.
Can I just the memo addresses what the Historic District Commission did during its last meetings of December 27th and the response to remand that this board has received. I could not have addressed those things previously. So the memo is new. It highlights the record, obviously, which is not new, the factual record, but it makes legal arguments based upon what happened on December 27th and the response to remand, so-called, that's been given to this board. So it is new. It is a legal argument. I think it would strengthen this board's ultimate decision if it addressed those issues, as opposed to not being able to look at them, not being able to address them. So again, I've taken too much time addressing a procedural point, but we would really appreciate if you had a chance to take a look at it. Thank you.
If I may, I share Attorney Tights' sentiment. I don't think that there's anything new there. And in fact, I don't believe that there's anything that I need to address. And to be candid, even if we're given the opportunity to address the points that were raised, I'm not sure that we would do it. I think that the record is clearly developed, and I think that this is right for the board's decision this evening. And I understand it's the board's discretion, but I would respectfully request that this matter be heard tonight without resort to additional filings. No briefs were requested. There's no schedule that was created by the board for briefing. And again, submitting something the Friday before a Monday hearing is really not fair, and I think that the appropriate remedy is to go forward this evening.
Thank you.
So it's up to us to decide if we're going to accept the first memo and do that, and whether we need additional time to develop and to the Historic District Commission's council. My view is, although sometimes what attorneys submit does obfuscate, most of the time it illuminates, and I'm always looking for illumination in terms of trying to figure out what do we make of what we're supposed to do. So I would say I'd like to see what Mr. McGillivray wrote, and if Mr. Resnick and Mr. Tetz want to, we should set a time limit for them to submit and set this down for a night when we would deliberate and vote what we are doing about the remand response.
I'm in agreement.
That's
So am I.
I think everyone should have a chance to get the most information we can have to make the correct decisions.
So, although Mr. Resnick wasn't sure whether he was going to respond, my intuition is if given time, he probably will. And so I think we probably ought to give him a reasonable period of time, 3 weeks, be reasonable for a response, if you wish to submit one.
For me, 1 week would be more than that.
Mr. Tights, I don't know whether you intended to file anything. Would 1 week be a reasonable opportunity for you to make that decision?
Yes. Yes, it will. I just want to say that, let me approach the mic. My concern also is, I would like you to, if you could tell us tonight whether you will or will not hear any oral argument when your next meeting is, because that makes a difference when the schedule is. Although we could respond with a brief within a week or so, I don't know when we'll find a day that we can all meet and that I'd be available for several weeks. So if you could just say if there will be oral argument, and then if there will be, then I'll have to work with you to try to find a date.
So,
but I just wanted to put you
that's
on
another question, which
notice on that.
is, would we come back with the written, whatever it is in writing that we have, and have the opportunity to read and review, and then give the attorneys another opportunity to make an argument, or just work off of the written submissions? That's up to what you guys want to do, or what we want to do.
I would lean towards allowing oral arguments after they write the responses.
Okay. And that would just be parties? We're not opening this up for public comment?
No.
Is that right, Mr. Hutt?
Correct. That would be my
Public hearing is over.
Okay, so short opportunity for council if they wish to make further oral argument. So that sounds like, is that okay?
Yes.
So that's what we're going to do. In light of that, is 1 week enough time for you to submit whatever you're going to submit in writing, and then we would have to set a hearing date thereafter, shortly thereafter.
Well, in light of the holiday weekend coming up, I would ask, I guess, for more than 1 week. I'd ask for 2 weeks from today. That would be February 25th, I think.
Okay.
And I think Ed just mentioned that, was it March 4th?
March 4th is our next meeting. So we could put this down for March 4th.
Except I won't be here.
I won't be here.
Definitely won't be here.
I'm getting operating on.
I'd like to do it before.
Okay, so are we going to have enough of a quorum for the March 4th?
I'm not available on March 4th either.
Okay. Well, so we could set this some other time. We don't have to set it on a regular hearing date, right?
Well, we need to set it tonight. Has to be to a date certain. Lunch for 3 weeks away.
And how long is that?
I can't make any Monday night. I just want you to know that up front. How about the chairman? When you
Doesn't have to be on that. Joe's gonna be out medically, right? So back with medical issues.
I'm having surgery on the 19th, so I'll be here.
My term expires in March.
You're looking good.
You can serve until you've been until they have
I
appointed
kind
somebody
of
else.
would, but I'm not going to ask the town council to renew me for 5 years since I'm going to be moving within months, or, within 6 months or something. So I'm not going to, but I would continue to serve. So if you're going to be operated on, then we have to wait to some reasonable period for you to recuperate when we can set this. How long do you expect?
I don't think it would be March 4th.
No. March 4th's not going to work anyway.
I said go another week so after that, so I should be, at least I'll be on crutches, I guess.
14th, it's a Thursday night. Planning board is regular meeting. 13th is a Wednesday night. The 12th is a Tuesday night.
I believe.
Okay.
15th and 4th March.
19th, 20th. You need to check the calendar, the budget hearing. Yeah, because I think there are budget hearings. We could also have it next door.
The Riverside building's open any of those nights, the town hall's not. So we can do it in the Riverside building, they have microphone.
Do you have to attend the town budget meetings, Andy?
I have a note on the 19th, but that would probably be, I could probably work around that. The 19th would be okay.
I'm sorry, I can do any night this month except for that court excuse, and I'm away on vacation out of the country.
How about the week of March 18th?
The week of March 18th, yes. But I can clear any night, the rest of that month. I would say the same thing for April. If you had to go to vacation.
My availability is fairly light.
Tuesday? What month?
March 26th or March 28th.
Thursday.
I could do the 26th.
And town hall's open on the 26th.
26th it is.
Does that work? March 26th, it's
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
March 26th.
So we could continue it to the 26th, and then there are memos, you only wanted 2 weeks, you could take 3 under those circumstances, because we're pushing out.
Sure, I'll take 3 as long as.
Yeah, I mean, if we're pushing it out, why cut that? So that would be the memos in by March 4th. That would be 3 weeks from tonight. That gives us 3 weeks to review what's been submitted. Okay. So I make a motion that the appeal in file number 2018-36 be continued to Tuesday, March 26th at 7 p.m. I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, there it is. March 26th, 7 p.m.
The memos are due Monday, March 4th.
March 4th.
And just so that the next point is clear, that would be any reply memos of the applicant and counsel for the HDC. And
Right.
beyond that, there'll be no further replies or CERN replies or anything else?
That's correct.
Okay.
One shot each.
Okay, well, we go back to sitting as the zoning board of review now. We have a continued petition, 39 Harrison Street, Raina Kidwell.